Justin, what's cracking, my man?
So, did you happen to hear the rumor about butter?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't even know. Are you?
I don't
I
want to
did
spread
not.
it. I don't want to spread it. I don't want to spread it. I don't want to spread
See, I knew
it.
it was some silly shit like
No,
that.
but real talk though, I want to tell you some crazy stuff that happened to me. So I was getting my MacBook fixed because you remember season 1 of Total BS podcast.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had awful issues. So I went to the Apple store and somebody robbed the Apple store. No, while I was in there. So,
No.
yeah, I was an eyewitness.
Damn it. Total BS podcast coming up right now. Jesus.
Yo, your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us. For real.
As you could probably tell, this show is going to be riddled with stupid shit throughout. So my man Justin is in the house. I am Saul Bookman. Thank you for joining us on Total BS Podcast, where we just kind of sit around and talk about the sports world and all the fun things and even a little bit of things on the side like pop culture and what have you. But the NFL draft started this week, obviously on Thursday. 1 and 2 went about according to plan, in terms of a Trevor Lawrence and homeboy from BYU getting drafted to the Jets, Zach Wilson. But once we hit 3, that's when things kind of started to shift a little bit. What was your overall impression of everything there, Justin?
That number 3 pick was the one that I had my eye on because of what was going on in Green Bay. And we'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit. But I saw the San Francisco 49ers have that number 3 pick. I heard Aaron Rodgers not being happy with where he's at in Green Bay. Well, Aaron Rodgers played at Cal. He's a Cali guy. I was certain that the 49ers were going to make a blockbuster trade and they were going to trade that pick to Green Bay, get Aaron Rodgers to come back home and be a San Francisco 49er. But then they kind of shocked the world and picked Trey Lance, the quarterback out of North Dakota State, who's got a great story, athleticism. I mean, he's built like a truck and he can run, but he can also sling the ball too. So I'm really excited about what Trey Lance can do as a 49er. But man, I did not think that they were going to take a quarterback. I really thought that they were going to draft somebody else, or excuse me, they were going to trade that pick and then get Aaron Rodgers. But Trey Lance, I like the pick.
Ooh, I don't know if I like the pick at all. In terms of, he's an unknown commodity, right? I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out.
People said that about Carson Wentz too, right? Because he was at North Dakota State, was this high-level quarterback, and he ends up going number 2. And, say what you want about Carson Wentz, but at one point in time, that man was leading the MVP race before he got hurt.
Yeah, and everything kind of fell apart after that, for sure. He hasn't been the same since. I don't know. Steve McNair was the last one before Carson Wentz to perform at a high level from a Division II school. Rest in peace. But I don't know. It always causes me concern when you take a quarterback from a league that's just, it's just whatever. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of that pick. In terms of the draft movement overall, it was okay. I think honestly the biggest winner of the day was the Chicago Bears and taking Justin Fields, in my opinion. Whether that works out or not, I think for Bears fans, they wanted to see their team at least attempt something and try to get a quarterback of the future, especially when they dangled Russell Wilson in front of everybody and then it never came to fruition and they had to settle on the Red Rocket or the Red Rifle. Sorry. Andy Dalton, not the Red Rocket. My bad. The Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. So I like what Chicago did. I'm a big fan of what they did.
The Bears have had quarterback issues for the last several years now. They have not had a steady quarterback. And, with getting Nick Foles, I thought that was a smart move because you get a veteran guy who's won the Super Bowl MVP, and he's been in the league. So if you're in win now mode, then you got to get a guy like Nick Foles. But then there's this back and forth controversy between him and Mitchell Trubisky, and now you turn Nick Foles into this guy who everyone thought was going to be your franchise quarterback for the next few years into this overpaid backup quarterback. And now you trade up, you get Justin Fields, and then do you have your franchise quarterback? I mean, you still have Nick Foles. You're still going to pay him $9 million guaranteed. So what are you going to do in that situation? Because Mitchell Trubisky's not there anymore. Mitchell Trubisky's in Buffalo. So the quarterback room isn't as crowded as a lot of people seem to think. Like a lot of people I've seen on Twitter think that Mitchell Trubisky is still on Chicago for some weird reason. But Justin Fields, to me, was the second best quarterback in this draft, in my personal opinion. I thought Mac Jones was great because he had Jalen Waddle, he had Devontae Smith, and all these, number of talented wide receivers to come out of Alabama. But that's no knock on Mac. It's just I do believe that the quarterbacks that are in this draft, when you look at Justin Fields and what he's accomplished at Ohio State and his athleticism and his skill set and how it complements the direction of where the NFL is going with offenses, to me, I just thought Justin Fields behind Trevor Lawrence was the second best quarterback. And that's why I'm surprised he didn't go higher. And when I saw the San Francisco 49ers stick with their pick, I thought they were going to rock the world and pick Justin Fields at number 3 rather than Trey Lance.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was a smarter pick if they would have gone that route. But, Kyle Shanahan clearly thinks highly of himself and how he can develop quarterbacks. I do not agree with, I know there's a perception that this is a deep quarterback draft. I'm not a fan of anybody, to be honest with you. I like Trevor Lawrence. I do. I liked him better after his freshman year. I just feel like he kind of plateaued a bit and not regressed. He just kind of plateaued. And I mean, that's as good as he was going to get in college, which is still phenomenal, right? Like he only lost 2 games his entire college career. Justin Fields bounces from Georgia, goes to Ohio State, which you got to completely question Mark Richt for that decision to let Justin Fields go from Georgia to Ohio State. That's blasphemy right there. That kid is ultra talented. However, I don't look at any of these quarterbacks and I'm like, oh, this is surefire, like can't miss prospect. I don't know. There's a few things about each one of them that I'm like, they could easily be Josh Rosen. Honestly, Josh Rosen, prototypical quarterback prospect. If he'd left after his freshman year in 2015, he'd have been probably first overall pick because he was like the future. A couple years go by, he has an okay college career, not terrible, but he has all the measurables. And where is he now? He's on his 3rd team. He's been basically a backup his entire career outside of his first year with the Cardinals, and he hasn't really done anything. So I think for as much as these guys could be like the next Peyton Manning, they could also be the next Josh Rosen. And so I'm not high on that. I think the best pick that wasn't a quarterback in the draft was clearly at number 4 in Atlanta. And the tight end Kyle Pitts, that dude's going to be a stud.
Yeah, he's a Swiss Army knife and a guy who can just do a little bit of everything. And even if you're willing to move on from Julio Jones, because I know they got an interesting cap situation going into this offseason, even if you move on from Julio Jones, you still get a guy like Kyle Pitts, and then you team him up with a guy like Calvin Ridley, and then you give Matt Ryan a chance. And that was actually the pick that I was thinking this is going to determine the direction and where the Falcons are moving, because they could have easily picked a quarterback, decided to move on from Matt Ryan and start fresh. But instead, they decided to get the best overall player available, which is Kyle Pitts. I want to go back to your point, Saul, about the quarterbacks and that class with Josh Rosen. That class also had Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. Hindsight's 2020. We know Sam Darnold is with the Panthers now. Josh Rosen is, I believe, still with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Buccaneers, yep.
Yeah, he was on the practice squad. Are you more confident, were you more confident in that quarterback class a few years ago than you are with this quarterback class this year?
No.
Because Trevor Lawrence, number one overall. I mean, we knew he was going to be the number one pick after his freshman year. To me, he just seems like a better number one overall pick than Baker Mayfield. But beyond that, thoughts?
It's about the same, to be honest. Like, I think the quarterbacks that get drafted later on might have just as good an opportunity as the quarterbacks that were taken in the first round. Like, remember, in that same draft with Baker Mayfield, who else came out? Got drafted by Baltimore.
Lamar Jackson.
Right? Everybody passed up on him, and Lamar Jackson ends up being the MVP. Like, so I don't know, man. I
totally forgot he was in that draft.
Yeah. He was drafted number 32 overall.
Wow.
The very last pick of the first round. So,
wow.
And when we're talking about this draft, there's a lot of decent quarterback prospects. Ian Book from Notre Dame, who hadn't been selected. I don't know if he's gotten selected yet today. Quarterbacks that maybe you don't think much of, but they might make some noise in the NFL. And I feel like when you compare those guys to like a Zach Wilson, who didn't even, he had to drop a bucket in college and played at BYU, and BYU didn't really play anybody last year. Like, all right. And then you have, Trey Lance. Okay. Well, those are two very largely unproven commodities when you're talking about like playing against NFL type competition at the college level. So we'll see. The jury remains out. But we do know one person that is a surefire Hall of Famer, can't miss prospect, and has proven it time and time again. That's last year's MVP, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. And boy, whoa.
Hey, Aaron.
He tried to steal the show on Thursday.
And he did it an hour before the draft started. You just sit there and you shake your head because, out of all the times that you could have decided to make a move and get the franchise to ship you off or make a deal, you do it an hour before the draft. He looked at Tim Tebow because Tim Tebow earlier that day had a workout with the Jacksonville Jaguars to be a tight end, which I really want to see happen. I'm telling you what, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, really the whole state of Florida is going to be an interesting scene in the NFL next year because you have Tua, Jalen Waddle, and the Miami Dolphins and the direction that they're going. You got the defending Super Bowl champions with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then you have that team. Man, listen, I think going back to Aaron Rodgers, though, he's going to retire.
Oh,
he's going to retire. No, and then he's going to come back. No, he's going to do exactly what Rob Gronkowski did, but he's not going to sit out for a year. He's going to retire and going to find a way to come back and go with another team. I don't know what's going to happen, but if what I'm reading is true, and Adam Schefter came on ESPN right before the draft, all huddled in his big old coat, and was like, Aaron Rodgers is disgruntled. He wants out. If Schefter says it, it's got to be true. And listen, I don't. How do I explain this? I kind of feel for Aaron Rodgers. I really do, because look at what happened in the NFC Championship. I would have been gone right after that point when they kicked the field goal instead of going for it and then giving the ball back to Tom Brady with just a couple minutes left in the game. That right there says, like, okay, we're not playing to win. In previous drafts, you have not drafted wide receivers. You have not been proactive in the market to give me weapons and make our offense all around better. Even though we've been competitive, we've been in tight playoff games, and we've had deep runs, this front office has not done enough to get the Packers over the hump. And if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I would have been gone yesterday. Seriously. And where will he go? I was thinking the San Francisco 49ers, but who knows? But I think it's for sure a 100% thing that Aaron Rodgers has done in Green Bay. But
ooh, all right, okay, hot take. You taking that action in Vegas?
No. No, because you never know. I was 100% certain that Russell Wilson was going to be gone from Seattle, and I thought he was going to be the next quarterback of the Chicago Bears. And then next thing you know, Pete Carroll comes out on a podcast or an interview and says, "Look, all the issues that we had with Russell, we patched it over. Russell's our quarterback, and we're ready to move on."
Pete Carroll is very much a good salesman when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't know. In both of those scenarios, money plays a big factor. Number one, with Russell Wilson specifically, after this year, then if Seattle wants to move on, they won't have to pay such a high cost in order to get rid of him. I think it's something like $43 million or something like that. I can't remember the figure, but it's more lucrative for them to hold on to him this year and then get rid of him than to have gotten rid of him this year. With Aaron Rodgers, the same thing. The Packers would take a $22 million hit if they released him before June 1st. That plays a factor. That absolutely plays a factor. So I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get moved. I don't, because he doesn't want to talk to these dudes. They've come over, they've tried to, smooth everything over, and Aaron Rodgers is like, "Yeah, I hear you, but still, go F yourself." Like, I don't like it here. This isn't the first time that the Green Bay Packers have completely, jaded a legendary quarterback. They did the same thing with Brett Favre, got rid of him. He went to the Vikings or the Jets and then the Vikings. And so it's not unusual for that franchise to completely gaff this. So I think they're going to wait until after June 1st, and then I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get traded to the Denver Broncos. That's what I think is going to happen.
Oh man, don't say that.
I know you don't want to hear that, buddy, but I think that, and that was the rumor. They had all but done the deal on draft night, according to several sources, to go to Denver. But I think it made more sense to just wait another month, let June 1st pass by, let the Green Bay Packers be able to save that $22 million, and then ship Aaron Rodgers off to Denver, where he can try to rekindle some of that Peyton Manning magic.
And then get Teddy Bridgewater. Like, what do you get in return if you're the Green Bay Packers? I don't think you're willing to get. I mean, are you officially going to begin the Jordan Love era?
Yeah,
and that's also another reason why Aaron Rodgers is kind of, or should be, upset. They got Jordan Love in the second round last year.
Yeah.
So
I absolutely think. I absolutely think that's what the direction they're going to go. The Jordan Love era is starting next year, whether you like it or not. Green Bay, it's happening. So we'll see. Moving on to other topics, the National Basketball Association is winding down. Only 2 more weeks left in the season. You got your Lakers back. You got your squad healthy. And the gang is all ready to go, except for the fact that they lost last night to the Sacramento Kings. But there's a new king in the West right now. The number 1 overall seed as we speak in the moment is not clinched. Let's be real about that. I think last night on social media, you probably were confused because you would have thought that the Suns clinched the number 1 seed, but they did not clinch the number 1 seed. They are just tied for the 1 seed, and they own the tiebreaker over the Utah Jazz since they beat them all 3 times they faced them this year. But the Phoenix Suns are the number 1 seed as we speak at the moment in the West. Justin, what are your thoughts?
The last time the Phoenix Suns finished with the best record in the NBA, I was just a young boy. This is awesome. I am all for it. As much shit as I give you for being a Suns fan, compared to, the 17-time world champions Los Angeles Lakers that are just so glorious, and they're the greatest franchise in all of professional sports.
Which I appreciate that you. I also do appreciate the fact that you have offset one of the greatest franchises of all time with the Chargers. Just so you know.
Yeah. Hey, somebody, for all you Harry Potter fans, I forgot who it was, but somebody in high school told me, "You're a Chargers fan? That's like liking Hufflepuff and Harry Potter." It's just such a random team that's just there. Nobody really cares about them.
The Washington Generals of the NFL, yes.
The Washington Generals always lose. The Chargers are just always there. You know, they are good enough to make the playoffs, but they're not bad enough to have a high draft pick. They're just always there. But anyways, back to my point. As much shit as I give you for being a Suns fan, and I give shit to all the Suns fans here living in Arizona just because, you know, I can do that. Even in the years when the Lakers were just absolutely god-awful, the Suns were just as bad. Now, everything has completely turned, and it's all because of the point god himself.
Oof.
Mr. Chris Paul, I mean, you're not going to give him...
No. Oh,
okay, you said oof.
Confused.
I was like...
Yeah, but it's not just because of him.
Oh, it's sure. But he was a major domino added and a big reason why they're in this position. And, you know, we said this when they first signed him. And we got to go back and find that episode because I was all about the signing because Chris Paul took the Oklahoma City Thunder at a time when they shipped off Paul George to the Clippers and they had all these young guys, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was their best player. Lou Dort, an undrafted free agent, was one of their better players. And the next thing you know, they add Chris Paul and they're in the playoffs when they never should have even been in that position in the first place. The Phoenix Suns go 8-0 in the bubble. They look great. Devin Booker is looking like this young, high-profile scorer. DeAndre Ayton is starting to mold into a walking double-double. All they needed was just that veteran who could control everything, but also be that mentor to these young guys in the locker room. And what Chris Paul has done to that culture is just great. And also, I think a big guy that should get some credit that doesn't get a lot of credit, at least from what I've seen, our guy Monty Williams, the head coach.
Oh yeah. No, I mean the franchise as a whole is completely
it's great.
Turned around. You know, it's completely turned around. Monty Williams is a big factor in that. So is James Jones. Those each could be executive and coach of the year. And Chris Paul should definitely get some love for the MVP conversation. I think, honestly, I'm biased, obviously, but I think behind Jokic, I think it's Chris Paul. I don't think there's another player in the league that has meant more to his team than Chris Paul. Chris Paul coming in and really educating this team on what it takes to be a winner, okay? The professionalism day in, day out, you know, how it's something to come from a coach, right? It's something to come from Monty Williams. And it helps that Monty Williams was a former player. Let's be real. But Monty Williams was never like an all-star. He wasn't like an elite player, right? Chris Paul is. And so when you have somebody like Monty Williams who has been there, done that, but not at that level and hasn't had to carry that burden like Chris Paul has as a franchise leadee, it means a lot. And then you bring in Chris Paul, and Chris Paul is like, okay, Monty's telling you this, and this is how you're going to get here, and this is why it matters, and this is what I do to get there. And so when you put those two pieces together, now you have a Devin Booker who's like, oh, okay, that's what it takes to be elite. Mikal Bridges coming around like one of the best defensive players in the country. Also, a future star. DeAndre Ayton's defense has been phenomenal this year. He's one of the best defensive bigs in the league now. And I don't know if we ever thought we would see that at some point. When his offense finally catches up, he's going to be a phenomenal player.
Wasn't that one of his biggest knocks coming out of college?
Defense,
man, he's a great player, but man, that defensive motor.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, and that's because Sean Miller teaches the pack line defense, which is a trash defense. I don't like it, but anyway, and so you put all those things together, and now you see the impact that Chris Paul has, and that's why I think Chris Paul has the influence. Now, I will also say this: Devin Booker deserves some of the love here. You know, he's been doing it for half a decade, all by himself, basically. And now that Chris Paul's in the fold, you can see it. You know, we got into a discussion last week on the Sun Solar Panel podcast. And we talked about the fact that Devin Booker was, basically coming down the stretch. It was a 1-4 ISO, four guys basically straddling the baseline, and then Devin Booker at the top, one-on-one. And when they played the Bucks, it just didn't work. He got lucky, he got bailed out by a foul. He had a free throw. They win by 1 against Milwaukee. And I'm not a big fan of those possessions because I feel like it's too easy to predict what Devin Booker's going to do. CP3 of late, especially this week against the Knicks specifically, man, and against, he's that added piece, and he can make a variety of different decisions. He can score on you, he can pass, he's going to find the open guy, he's going to set guys up for success. And I think that was the missing piece. And so now you have 2 pieces of the puzzle who can come through in the clutch. And this team, I'm cautiously optimistic. Every time I think about the Suns, I'm like, is there a shoe that's going to drop? I don't know. This team could very well go all the way to the NBA Finals, and they could very well be bounced in the first round. I don't know. I wager to bet it's going to be somewhere in the middle, probably second round or Western Conference Finals. But the way that things have fallen in the West, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they can make the finals. Now, can they win the World Championship? That is highly dependent on how far the New Jersey Nets go, and only the New Jersey Nets, because I think the Suns can compete with every team outside of the New Jersey Nets, just like
Brooklyn.
A lot of teams in the NBA. I mean, when you have that 3-headed monster, it's almost impossible to beat them if they're all playing together. So yeah, there's a lot of things at stake here. The Suns have had a phenomenal year. They should be proud. Their franchise should be proud. Their fans should be proud. And I'm one of them. And it's great to see. I get goosebumps when I think about, man, 3 years ago when DeAndre Ayton got drafted and they had a 17-win season with Igor Kokoshkov as the head coach, it was a dumpster fire. It was awful. It was not fun to watch. It was horrible to cover. And now this team is one of the best in the league. And why? Because Robert Sarver, and I'm going to give him credit, he deserves the credit. He took it upon himself to say, you know what? Things aren't going right. 17 wins is trash. So we got to do something. And they had already brought James Jones in to kind of shadow Ryan McDonough. They bring in him. They bring in Lance Blakes, who has some GM experience behind him. And they revamp this roster. They revamp the coaching staff. They bring in Monty Williams, which was the best thing they could have ever done. He is so respected by so many people. And he has such an aura about him that is so confident and also so positive with the combination of being direct. Justin, one of the things about, I'm not trying to compare myself to Monty Williams, but one of the things I think you could appreciate me is I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell you like it is, but I still love you. You know what I mean?
For
like,
sure.
Hey, hey, that was not very good. This is the way you could have improved it. So let's not have a trash segment like that again. Cool. Got you. And we move on. You know what I mean?
I know exactly. That's exactly what you're going to tell me later on. You'd be like, hey, that shit you said it during the NFL draft.
Yo, that was whack, man. Let's move on. Yeah, no. So that's why I think the Suns are in a very, very good place. They've even changed a little bit of their ownership. People forget that Larry Fitzgerald is part of their ownership group now.
That's right.
And he has ownership stakes. So you have good fundamental pieces and good people with good business sense and good character that are in that franchise that are trying to revamp it from what it was. And so it's going to be interesting to see where the Suns go as they move forward. But in the meantime, we have a little bit of baseball to talk about. And in the house is now from The Athletic, one Mr. Fabian Ardaya. Fabian, I hope I got that right?
Fabian.
Fabian. Damn it. I knew I was going to screw that up.
You're all good.
Fellow
Fabian
Suns
Ardaya.
fan.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But he's also an ASU guy. So it's like, all right. Well. Fabian, how you doing today?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, just living the dream out here. Total BS podcast. So, Justin, thank you for getting Fabian. Fabian, thank you for spending a few moments with us. Let's just go ahead and start off here. No hitter or no hitter, 7-inning no hitters.
It's weird. I mean, I feel like if you're gonna call it a complete game, yeah, I have a hard time like rationalizing not calling it a no hitter. If you're gonna call that a complete game, if you're gonna call what Zach Gallen pitched literally earlier that same day a one hitter, ultimately I think it's just something that Major League Baseball is gonna have to figure out some sort of a solution to. If you're gonna have these 7-inning games, it was gonna be inevitable that one of these games was gonna happen eventually, especially seeing Now, how many times in a 9-inning game you get like the no-hitter alert once it gets through 6? Like that's gonna leave a lot of opportunities for that. So whether it's creating a separate category or whatever, like there's probably gonna be a way that they're gonna have to find a way to work around this unintended consequence.
Have you been surprised at what's been the biggest surprise for you this season so far? I know you cover the Angels predominantly, or at least the West Coast quite a bit, but I know you're heavily involved with the Angels as well. What's been the biggest surprise so far here in the early part of the season?
I think it's the adjustment to 162 games again. I think it's a little bit different, like how you consume baseball. I know it was like this one really like short burst 60-game season last year, and it was weird like how immediate you sort of felt that. Like, all right, like one really rough stretch for a team, like, oh, that's going to have like really severe consequences for their chances to make the playoffs, even with an expanded postseason field. This year, it's a little bit different. I think fan reactions, we've seen like some of the negative fan reactions when there's a bad slide. Like even like with the Yankees, obviously, when you see their fans throwing baseballs into the field, like odds are they're still gonna make the playoffs. Like they still have probably the best like statistical odds to make the playoffs. They have chances to make up that ground. And you have teams like the Twins, the White Sox that are below 500. Those are two teams that I probably pegged at being towards the top of the American League. So I feel like the opportunity for these teams to sort of make up that ground. I think if you're like looking at last year, all of a sudden you're looking at like the Diamondbacks are 14-12, the Mariners are 15-12. All of a sudden you're looking at these teams like, all right, they're probably going to make the playoffs. Like they would have to really collapse to not make the playoffs at that point. All of a sudden, now you're all of a sudden recognizing again that it's 162 games. You made a lot of injuries, especially building back up, and a lot of stuff still going to change. So it's been a season and a half of not really knowing how much of a sample size is enough to really know what's real and what's not. And it's I'm looking forward to like May, June, when at least we have a better idea of that.
So you covered the Angels and other West Coast teams last season. You were a part of the COVID-19 affected season. What was that experience like? And then what's it like compared to this year?
I will say I am glad I don't have to be in a stadium that has no fans and has artificial crowd noise. I would have rather had no crowd noise at all. I get why they did it. I get that they had to do something for players, like just to get any sort of adrenaline going. But it's really surreal to be sitting in a press box and knowing that there's noise coming and there's no one that's producing that noise. It's very surreal. Last year, I mean, it's still an adjustment doing everything over Zoom, everything like that, and not really getting to monitor Clubhouse, walk around Clubhouse, stuff like that. Because that's one of the things I love about covering baseball is just how much access you get on a day-to-day basis. Now, all of a sudden with Zoom, it sort of feels like I'm covering college football again, where like you get the players you're designated to get per the day. You talk to them in a group setting, and that's about it. So that's something that's been taking some adjusting to, but I feel like there's still like ways to work around that. And I mean, it's definitely been different, and I think it's been different for multiple reasons besides just obviously baseball and everything like that. But like, it's definitely been an interesting couple of years.
Best moment real quick. Best moment in a clubhouse since covering Major League Baseball.
It's hard to say. Like, it's hard to say because like so much of them are just like little moments, like having just the side conversations that lead to big stories later on and stuff like that. It's hard. I guess if I had to go like a little bit more lighthearted, I think it was like after Shohei Ohtani became the first Japanese player ever to hit it for the cycle. I mean, we were talking to him, and we're like wandering back to the clubhouse because we got him first. They wanted to do it separately first, so basically everyone had vacated the clubhouse at that point. But one of the few guys that was left was David Fletcher because he was still eating, and he was just like having like this tres leches cake in front of him, and like we're just talking to him, and it's like we're talking about Shohei, and then we brought up his interpreter Ippei Mizuhara, and he said like, "Oh, Ippei and Shohei, like Shohei speaks English, he doesn't need Ippei," and that sort of thing. Like obviously he needs Ippei and stuff like that. Like Shohei's English has gotten a lot better over the years, but like he still needs Ippei. But it's just really funny, like just the back and forth, because I know he and David Fletcher have a good relationship.
For sure.
If you have, if we're starting a franchise today, we'll put you on the spot, and you have Jacob deGrom, Mike Trout, Ronald Acuna Jr., or Fernando Tatis, who are you starting your franchise with?
I'm starting with the two guys who are younger, probably, just because you want to try to build around those guys. I mean, Mike Trout, it's hard to say not Mike Trout. Hard not to say Mike Trout. I mean, Jacob deGrom's pitching at a level that we haven't seen in years, but I mean, he's 33 years old. He's 33 years old, which is hard to really realize. Like he's in his 30s, like he's about the same age as Clayton Kershaw, which if you think about their careers, like they're in completely different stages, it seems, in their careers. Even though Clayton Kershaw is still pitching at elite level basically ever since everyone said that he was washed. Like, he still pitched like at a level he's going to get Cy Young votes. So it has to be between Tatis and Ronald Acuna Jr. And I love Tatis. I love everything he's been able to do in his time in the big leagues so far. And I think obviously playing shortstop, that's going to be an impact position. The shoulder stuff still scares me. I know that like Cody Bellinger had a similar issue, and it seems like his health in that regard is not going to be a concern long term. But I still feel like I would go Acuna, just because like I feel like there's still something there that we haven't fully tapped into, and it seems like he's starting to do that a little bit this year, where like a 40-40 season seems like it's definitely within his grasp. He almost had it a couple of years ago, and I'd imagine that we would get one soon.
Why don't we appreciate Mike Trout more, Fabian? We had this debate a couple podcasts ago. I feel like if you can go anywhere in Los Angeles and you were to go into a mall, I feel like more people are more likely to recognize Alex Caruso, the backup point guard for the LA Lakers, than a guy like Mike Trout. Am I crazy for thinking that, or what's your thoughts on just Mike Trout and his presence in the sports world?
Well, I think part of that is baseball standing in the sports world. Like I think people recognize NBA guys more than NBA guys, and probably NFL guys significantly more than baseball players do in general. Like I feel like there's a very select group of baseball players. Like even Fernando Tatis Jr. Like he's the face of baseball right now, and I'm not sure how many guys would recognize him outside of San Diego right now. Like I think that's a big part of it, and I think part of it also is like it's just the way Mike Trout's excellence sort of displays itself. It's not with, I mean, he will make great flashy highlight reel plays, but the real secret to why he's so great isn't because of his ability to make these crazy plays, because there's so many talented athletes who are playing baseball now who are able to make these kind of plays. It's just the fact that he's able to do it day in and day out. His bad days are still like 0 for 2 with a couple of walks. And that's not necessarily going to be the most that's not necessarily gonna be the most inspiring thing ever. But it's not like, even then, it's like baseball, like a guy is not going to go and regularly hit 3 homers in a game. It's not going to be like Steph Curry going for like 12 threes regularly, or like he's going off. So like it's the excellence of Mike Trout, it comes from seeing him every single day. And that's the thing that's tough about it. Like it's an every single day kind of grind of a sport. So it's not necessarily as many. I mean, you would feel like there's more opportunities to talk about, but it's not really as much. That's why, like, I feel like the guys that we talk about in that sort of similar regard to we talking about, like when we're talking about basketball players within baseball, are usually pitchers, just because like you see them once a week and they have more control over the game than a guy who gets 4 bats.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Earlier last week, Trevor Bauer didn't get into it, but he was kind of talking trash along with Fernando Tatis was kind of showing up things. But Trevor Bauer's response, now if you know Trevor Bauer, he loves a good shit talking. But Trevor Bauer basically said, like, yeah, I love the fact that he was showboating after he hit a home run. Like he should. Like if you serve one up, like you deserve it. Like that's how it goes. And to me, I think that's kind of the missing part of this, is that, kind of to your point, baseball could do a much better job of really embracing that kind of flair and that kind of style. And people want to see that. That's the difference between the NBA, the NFL, and Major League Baseball. What are your thoughts on, showboating after a homer, or even, hey, if you strike somebody out, like trash talk them. It's okay.
Yeah, I feel like there's a cognitive dissonance between like players are wanting to do that. I think more players are okay with that than not, and I feel like you're seeing more of that happening. But I think between that and the league's marketing, which is also shifting in that direction, like they're marketing that sort of stuff, but also like their disciplinary side, where I mean, you see like Nick Castellanos, where he basically just pumps his chest and he gets a 2-game suspension, like just because the bench is cleared as a result. But like I feel like that's the sort of stuff that like it's still like, I mean, it's interesting. It's stuff that's interesting for the sport. And I think on the whole, it's good for the sport if guys are able to express themselves and like show themselves. And I think more pitchers than not, you'll talk to them like, yeah, like you hit one off me, like, yeah, hitting's really hard. Pitching's really hard. I feel like you have any of those opportunities to have that sort of success. Yeah, you should definitely celebrate it. Like, I don't know why. Like, it's a lot of just sort of really baked in ideas that only exist in American baseball. If you look at it in Korea, you look at it in Japan, you look at it in the Dominican Winter League, it's all commonplace there and it's great there. It's just for some reason it's baked in to how American baseball has been played, and I think it's something that's going to change.
So nearly 30 games are in place. The first batch of games have already happened. Overall thoughts on just the season? Any contenders, surprise teams? Just give us a breakdown of what you've seen this season.
I know they haven't been able to hit for a week, but I still think, I mean, the Dodgers have been a juggernaut for ever, and especially the last couple of years. And just seeing what they did this winter, having them take a look at what the Padres did, and then their reaction is to blow past the luxury tax when no one else will. Like, that shows like they see that this is their time, and I mean it seems like they're destined to do that right now. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries, especially to their bullpen. That's going to hurt them a lot. They haven't had Cody Bellinger for most of the year, but when that lineup's really firing, you're going to have Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Cody Bellinger, and then Justin Turner, Max Muncy. Like, that's, and then keep going down the list. Like, Will Smith is one of the most underrated players in the game. Like, yeah, that's going to be really hard for anyone to compete with. I think you're seeing some of the other teams that we thought of in that light. Like, they're also off to really bad starts often. Like, the Yankees are off to a really bad start. The Braves are off to a really bad start. I mentioned before the Twins and the White Sox aren't off to great starts. So it's stuff that's going to sort itself out. But I feel like the talented teams I still believe in, just because like they have so much talent, and the Dodgers are sort of at the top of that list.
Awesome. Well, Fabian, sorry. We appreciate you joining us here today on the Total BS podcast. Thanks for your insights, and thanks for taking us a few minutes with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right. That's Fabian Ardaya. You can find him on The Athletic. He's a tremendous writer, and you can follow him on Twitter as well. He's a good follow. He's got great insights. He's a former Sun Devil, but we won't hold that against him. He knows what he's talking about, and he's super young. Like, that's the other thing that, like, this kid is like almost straight out of Cronkite to The Athletic. That's how good he is as a writer, how good of a personality he is. And so, yeah, definitely worth a follow. Go ahead.
Saul, I feel like we've had more Sun Devils on Total BS podcast than Wildcats.
Oh, I don't know about that.
We had Matt Lively on.
Mm-hmm.
We had who else do we have on? Gilbert, right?
Oh, yeah, Steve Gilbert, yeah.
Steve Gilbert.
Yeah.
He's a Sun Devil.
Yeah.
Now Fabian Ardaya.
Yeah. You might be onto something.
Oh, man.
I'm not sure.
We know more Sun Devils than Wildcats. That's a problem, man.
Yeah, but no, because we've had Espo, we've had Corey Williams. I'm sure there's another one that I'm forgetting as well, but we're all Wildcats. And plus, both of us are Wildcats, so that's 4-3 right there.
Sure. One thing I forgot to ask was top baseball movie of all time. I know you're a big-time movie guy. I know you talk about movies on your 6 different podcasts that you do.
I used to do, yes.
Favorite baseball movie?
Major League.
Easily.
Yeah, that's number one. Easily.
My kind of team.
Yeah, for sure.
My kind
for
of
sure.
team.
That's my kind of team. Yep, absolutely.
My kind of team.
We just give them big old shit burger to eat. Love it. But hey, we're gonna wrap this show up with the best segment ever. That's right, baby. We're doing dad jokes today on the Total BS podcast. I just felt like, this is a good way to just kind of wrap it all up. And I hope you like the graphic too. I don't know if you saw the old cranky white man in the corner, but I think that's pretty funny. And so here we go. Dad jokes. Justin, you want to lead it off or you want me to?
I did my eyewitness, and
I know you did. You already blew it all the way at the beginning. Like you gotta pace yourself. Hey, so this is how we're gonna construct this. All right. So the way we're gonna construct this is Justin and I each get 2 2 dad jokes to tell, and we try not to. You got to try not to break, essentially, right? And so,
That's gonna be
so yeah,
hard.
I'll absolutely go first. All right,
Okay.
you ready?
Let me hear it. Let me hear it.
I gotta
1 point for me.
keep it straight face. I gotta keep it straight face. Sorry, Justin. Did you hear about the noise ordinance problems in Hawaii?
I did not.
So now you cannot laugh above a certain decibel level. So you can only give aloha.
Oh man. That's pretty good. I thought you were like instructing me, telling me like, hey, you can't laugh a certain level or else that's a point for me. And then it went to the dad joke. I love it. Aloha.
All right, your turn,
I
sir.
love it. Oh man. I have so many. Do you know Mike Tyson's favorite rock band? Kith. I don't even know if that's a dad joke.
I don't know if that's a dad joke either, but it's funny as hell. Oh my gosh. All right, I got 2 more actually. All right, so here's one. What did Tennessee?
Oh.
The same thing Arkansas.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What do you call a teddy bear without teeth? A gummy bear.
That's a good one. I like that. I like. Why do some couples go to the gym?
To work things out?
They want their relationship to work out. Yeah.
I was close.
Nice.
All
All
right.
right, last one, Justin. What you got?
Oh man. All right. I used to run a dating service for chickens, but I was struggling to make hens meet. No, that didn't stick. That didn't stick. All right. One more.
You only get 3, man. You only get 3.
Damn.
You got to use that for next week. Oh man, Justin, that was fun. That was good. Nice little segment, nice little light note to end the show on. But as always, folks, this is the Total BS podcast, and you, Justin, tell them where to find us.
The official center of dad jokes. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, any podcasting platform that you listen to podcasts. We are on it. So search Total BS Podcast, smash that subscribe button, leave a rate and review, share with all your friends, and also please follow Total BS Podcast on all social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube and Twitch page.
Also, selfish plug. We got to congratulate our man Justin Spears for getting back on the air this upcoming was it this upcoming week or
this upcoming week on Monday?
Week? Yeah,
it is
back
going
on
down.
ESPN Tucson, back on his show 3 to 6 every single day Arizona time. So if you get a moment to go stream it, you should definitely check it out. It's always good content, especially if you're a U of A person, because that's basically all they talk about. So
that's all we talk about. And Saul will be a guest depending on when he's available. Hopefully it's weekly. I want him daily, but I know he's a busy man. But the thing that I love about all the platforms that we have is that we can all get to share with each other. And Total BS Podcast is going to be on live radio. So Total BS is going to be everywhere, but you also get your dose of Total BS every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. So thank you for the plug, man. I appreciate
it. Of course, man. Proud of you. I'm happy it all worked out and you got back on the airwaves. And Ari Farang is a good friend of the show. He's been on for the draft special that we did, and he's hilarious. He's got great insights. He's very witty. And he also does great work with the Nova Home Loans Bowl, the Arizona Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the Arizona Bowl, right? Yeah. And so yeah, I'm excited to hear you guys get back to it, and I'm happy for you. I know you were itching to get back to doing something like that again, so that'll be great. But until next time, we got a lot of things coming your way, and as usual, just you can subscribe and listen to the show and the podcast, and we'll be back next week for some more Total BS. Until next time, we'll see you when we
Peace.
see you. Peace.
Yo, your fans just might turn into our fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping at the